Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So in this video I'm going to embark upon a deeper exploration of the proverbial marauder and hopefully broaden and enrich our understanding of human threats in the post-disaster environment. So I'm going to present a typology of human threats which range from non-violent deviance to full-blown brutally sadistic behavior. So let's get into it. So in this video, I'd like to focus your attention on your perceptions of what a marauder is, how you define it, and how that's going to impact your ability to accurately screen and assess threats in a post-disaster environment, trying to enrich our understanding of what this quote-unquote marauder actually is. So before I delve into my typology of criminality in the post-collapse environment, I would like to invite you to do a guided imagery exercise with me today. So if you're not driving, I would invite you to close your eyes and imagine that you're walking down a country road. It's a post-disaster environment. I'm not sure what the disaster was. You can make up one in your mind if you want. But you're walking down this road, country road. You can't see anybody. And there's trees on both sides of the road. You're just walking along, perhaps seeking a place of refuge with your bug-out bag. Now, all of a sudden, 10 feet in front of you, a marauder emerges from the bushes. Now I want you to take a snapshot of what that marauder looks like in your mind right now. What does that marauder look like? What visual comes to your mind immediately when I say the word marauder? And feel free to write down your description of your marauder in the comments. Now it's very important that you take a snapshot of that marauder as it was and not sugarcoat it or decorate it in any way possible, because that's going to give you an insight into how your unconscious works. They call this a word association test in psychology, and more specifically it's implicit associations, meaning it's implied as opposed to an explicit association, what you would perhaps tell people your marauder looks like as opposed to what you think they look like. And of course this is based on our biases and stereotypes of the world. So the point of this video is going to be to broaden your understanding of what that human threat might look like in a PCE, because we all have stereotypes about the world. We can't help having implicit associations. Now a trained group of psychometrists could take you into a room for a day and give you all sorts of implicit association tests, and they could hook your face up with electrodes and using facial myography and your twitch reflexes and your knee-jerk reactions to various stimuli. They could determine with a great degree of accuracy what kind of car you would like to have, what your sexual preferences were, what your religious beliefs were. Without you telling them any of this information explicitly, they could determine all this from implicit association testing. This is not science fiction. This is just simple word association tests. I'm not going to explain how they work, but all you need to know is that they work. This bias, this implicit association that you had of this marauder, like I said, it tells you a lot about your bias of the world. And the whole point of this video is going to be to broaden your understanding of what human threats might look like in a post-collapse environment. Because of course not all marauders, like my own marauder in my mind, I get the image of the Lord Humongous in Mad Max. That's what my stereotypical marauder looks like in my mind. The guy who emerges from the bushes is half naked with a hockey mask and some sort of melee weapon in his hands. That's what my marauder looks like. So anybody, of course, who doesn't fit that image is going to catch me off guard. Now lastly, before I delve into this typology, I want to introduce to you another concept called stachoma. So it's a scientific term for a visual blind spot, but it also can apply to how we view the world. So the stachoma is a word that some psychologists use to describe a possibility that we perhaps omit, and in doing so limit our understanding of the world. So it might be a certain part of a problem that we just don't see because for whatever reason our brain is so conditioned not to see it, even though it might be right there in front of our eyes. So it is a perceptual flaw, and it may well be the death of us if we're trying to determine who's who in the post-collapse environment. So it's very important that we can open our minds as much as possible and not see things so one-dimensionally, especially when it comes to people and our understandings of criminality. Because sometimes, and I've said this before, the biggest criminal threats that you're going to have to worry about in a post-disaster environment probably aren't all those people that you see on TV looting and stuff like that. It's probably going to be the people who have the means to give you a good fight. And I've talked a bit before about not necessarily fearing the out-group more than the in-group. And it may well be the in-group who has the means to make your life a real living hell. So they might have the resources and stuff to combat you. I'm going to reference The Walking Dead again, and typically it's not the zombies that are the problem. It's the other human elements that are the problem. So it's those in your peer group that propose the largest threats, as opposed to those people like the zombies, whoever your zombies are. And of course, that's a divisive issue in itself, because people have different associations of what the zombies are metaphors for. But most of us think that the criminal is always going to be wearing a leather jacket or, a backwards hat or whatever. And that's not always the case, especially in the postmodern era from which we live. So there's many different definitions of the word marauder, but I chose this one because I thought that this was the most relevant to what we talk about. And now, a marauder is a person or animal that goes from one place to another looking for people to kill or things to steal or destroy. It also means to roam or go around in quest of plunder, to make raid for booty. Booty is an older term for material stuff, basically. Now, of course, it means something else. But so there are synonyms for the word marauder, and they're raider, plunder, pillager, looter, robber, pirate, freebooter, bandit. It's pretty clear what, the image of the marauder is in our mind, but it's important that we understand that not all criminal and human threats are going to fit this stereotypical understanding, whether it's rule of law or not rule of law. So I'm going to propose to you the disaster preparedness marauder spectrum, and it's broken down into 8 different classes of criminal behavior.